Those are things you should do.
Right, let's just get straight into it then. Because you came for the international rugby, you're staying for the domestic stuff because you know it's what we love.
Exactly right.
Let's have a domestic.
Yeah.
Come on then, JB. You teased in the international podcast that you saw the best team,
amateur
team ever.
Not ever, but I would say what I would consider the best amateur rugby club, certainly at level 7, that I have seen for about 5 years. And this...
Suddenly the caveats are coming in. The best team at level 7 ever? No, in the last 5 years.
Are you excluding TOC H in your assessment?
No.
They count.
Not actually. So, in terms of amateur, I mean teams that are just simply not paid. And also, I've got to see them. So I believe that there are other teams out there who have not been paid who are better, but I've not seen a better one than this. And it is the boys from deepest, darkest Lancashire. Tarleton. Have you ever been to Tarleton to play rugby?
I don't even know where Tarleton is.
No, I didn't know they had a rugby club until
near
about
Preston, isn't it?
3 years ago. Yes, it is near Preston, which I think is key to their success, actually.
They get the casts-offs from...
Yeah, so the story behind Tarleton is you go there, and it's a club in the middle of fields. Like fields and fields and fields and fields. So I took my dog.
Yeah, so it's halfway between Preston and Southport.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's nice and it's very flat round there.
It's incredibly flat. It's like playing in like Kansas or somewhere. So I took my dog for a quick walk after the game, and we just set off across some fields, and you just keep walking and fields until the horizon. So yeah, very, very flat.
Yeah.
So that's where the club is. Now it's funny you mention Preston because they've got 2 coaches, both relatively young. One from Blackburn, one from Preston.
Yeah,
so you can see.
Yeah, neither a million miles from that neck of woods.
But you can see from their success, sort of just starting to trickle down into Tarleton. I wonder if I said that right. Is it Tarleton or is it Tarleton?
I would say Tarleton.
Tarleton, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the team that they've got, I have seldom seen a bunch of blokes that look more like a rugby team. Like 1 to 15, they look like they all play rugby and they all have a rugby gym program. It's about 5 lads in there who can really carry a ball. Their 8 can bloody carry. Their tight head can really carry. Their 6 is a great carrier. Their 12 can get over the gain line. Like, just across the board, they've got absolute quality. And they play really, really nice, aggressive rugby. So we were looking at the table before we played. We were second, they were 4th, I think. But we had 1 game ahead of them. Somehow they managed to lose 2 games, which is unbelievable, really. But yeah, it was the whole thing was it was the tightest game that we've had in a long time. We prevailed by 2 points.
Ooh.
But I did like that. A message from JB in a WhatsApp group we're all in said, everybody's stacked, ball carriers everywhere, good in the skill positions, blah 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 blah. Lastly, well coached. The best amateur team I've seen in 5 years. We beat them by 2 points.
Yeah,
yeah.
Wow.
It's kind of that's what it was about. It was just they were amazing. We're a little bit better.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when you watch this game, when you rewatch it later on, Tim.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you get the VHS.
I've got the recording. I've seen the highlights.
Yeah. when you watch it in real detail, I'm trying to think of a game which is equivalent, but it'd be like Fiji playing Wales and Fiji going ahead. And then you're just waiting for the superior Welsh players to break the line and score. And you're waiting for that moment of magic or a moment of genius, and it never came. So they were breaking our line, and we were scramble defending, and then they give away a penalty or knock it on. But they scored 2 tries, both from our mistakes, like semi-mistakes. But then they had to play a lot of rugby to score the points subsequent to that mistake. So every point they scored, they earned. But it just wasn't enough. And they scored their last try as the whistle went, basically, last play of the game, underneath the sticks. Goal kicker steps up to kick it.
Under the sticks?
Pretty much under the sticks.
Oh, no.
Right? Their flag goes up. Our flag stays down.
What?
And the referee is like, okay, what do I do now? So he's seen the kick go over. If he awards these points to the home team, it's a draw, and everyone goes home.
What? Hold on.
Like kissing your sister.
I thought you just said he sees the kick go over, as in he saw it as the kick going over.
No, sorry. He's seen the kick go, as in he's seen the... not go over, though, right?
Yeah.
He's seen the kick, but he hesitates. So as soon as he hesitates, we're like, well, we've won. And they're like, well, we think it's a draw. The referee's not made a decision. And
Oh, God.
to make his decision, right, the easiest thing in the world would be say, yeah, it's a draw. And now the touch judges are talking to each other. And one is going, well, it went over there. Our coach is now sort of
Oh, no.
drifted over. The referee's still not made a decision. He's going over. He talks to the touch judge and goes, I think it went over. So we're like, okay, we think that we've got this. The crowd at Tarleton are going wild as a level 7 crowd can go. And then eventually he goes, I think it went over. Game Didsbury. And what a
He
call.
said he thinks it missed.
No, he thought it went over.
Who, the referee did?
The referee thinks it went over.
Isn't it-
So how did he not give the call?
Because he hesitated. And as soon as he hesitated to talk to the touch judge to find out what he thought, he left himself in this massive hole. So now he's got to make the decision.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
He's got to make that decision now.
That's really tough. Situations like that are really tough for referees. And because in retrospect, that guy will think, I shouldn't have asked the question of the touch judge, who is just someone from one of the clubs. They're not an official. I shouldn't have asked the question, and he'll know next time not to do that. I remember one situation when I used to be a teacher and I was reffing a school game, and the opposition had no numbers on their backs, and from the kickoff, one of their players just absolutely wiped out the opponent, my team, but it's irrelevant whose team it was, but wiped out someone's legs, and he did a proper somersault, landed on his head. It was like it was just ridiculous, and I didn't know who had done it, and so I just said, I looked around, thought, what do I do here? And the decision I made was, I just went, I'm really sorry, I couldn't see who that was, so I can't send anyone off. Penalty. And what I should have done was just get, and it's afterwards I went, oh, what are you doing? I should have gone to the captain and said, I'm not sure who it was, so captain, bring me whoever that was.
Yeah.
Good.
And then
he brings you the dweeby kid,
he brings
Poindexter.
Me, and if
you sure it was this guy?
If he says,
This guy?
we don't know who it is, I'll say, well, you can go off then, sunshine. But
I like it.
But anyway, but you only. What my point being is, you only think about this stuff afterwards, and that ref will be kicking himself because he'll know that he's.
He made the right decision, so ultimately he'll be fine.
Right decision for you.
No, it was the right decision.
All right,
I stood underneath the post, and I'm like, that's not gone over.
Were you the one with the flag?
No, I wasn't. It was our concussion boy who was deeply concussed at the time.
But you would have accepted it if the ref had gone,
Yeah.
I saw it as over, I'm giving it.
Yeah, I would have accepted it because it's a hard job, and he's a good ref. That's the other thing. Like he'd reffed the game perfectly throughout. I would love to know what Tolson think of his reffing, but certainly from my point of view, I thought he was brilliant.
Someone who was brilliant, and I'm just looking at his fantasy rugby draft points. Ben Earl, 49.7 points.
Oh my God!
1 try, 1 assist, 128 metres gained, 4 clean breaks, 9 defenders beaten, 3 turnovers, 1.
Oh my
He
God!
was phenomenal.
That is ridiculous numbers.
It is. Before we move on, do you just want to talk quickly about your boys Marlow?
How did my boys Marlow get on?
Not well. They lost, mate. They lost against Chinna 3. Yeah, tributes south to north. They will not be dancing on the streets of Marlow tonight. Let's put it that way.
But get this, Raffy Quirk's Broughton Park under-15s went to Yorkshire.
Yes.
Deepest, darkest Yorkshire.
Old Rishworthians.
Wow.
A very good team.
Yeah. Is George Ford playing?
Yeah, that's his old club, isn't it?
It is.
Near Halifax. Very good club. And we lost to them last season. This Broughton Park bunch of lads won 3-0.
Wow.
Oh, a classic.
Absolute classic. But the boys were delighted with that.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was without our fly half as well. He was out injured, so...
Well, that's probably why you've only got 3.
Yeah. No, so I wasn't able to watch, but weirdly I was nervously getting WhatsApp updates on games. That's what I'm about in my life, right? The thing I get most nervous about are WhatsApp updates on under-15
I'm
rugby
unbearable when Talk H are playing and I've got my phone on me but I'm not there. Unbearable. In fact, when we went to Malaga, I had to leave my phone in the room. Otherwise, I'm just glued to it.
He really did. leave his phone in the room.
Yeah.
And then we got back into the room later. He's like, yes!
Get in!
Give me,
Get me the Patron!
do you remember drinking Patron in the hotel?
I do.
JB, so we'd been out having a few beers on the Friday, and we during the day we come back to the hotel to get a shower and change, and I was like stepping out of the shower and JB's banging on my door, open the door, and he's got a bottle of Patron in his hand.
Happens, doesn't it?
So JB, why on earth have you got half a bottle of Patron? Like, have you drank half a bottle of Patron between bringing that up here? So I know he's on the steps. I took the steps down. I was steps up. I was 2 floors above him, and someone had cleaned out another room. Like one of the room service had cleaned out another room, and they just left half a bottle of Patron on the stairs.
It's amazing what you could find.
Wow.
So instead of boozing in the bars in Malaga, we were drinking Patron out of plastic cups in our hotel.
Yeah, really living their life.
Yes.
Talking of Broughton Park, you see their score this weekend?
Will Kane emailed us, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. Love the pod, blah, 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 especially the Nausing Northwest level 6-7 chat. Rafi Quirk's Broughton Park took a beating on the Isle of Man, but I imagine more than made up for it last night. Let the boys play.
Not good. They're awesome. Last year,
No. We're not spending any more time in level 7.
Hang on.
We've spent plenty of time down. We can go back there, but we need to talk about some rugby.
I'll finish with this. Last year, level 5 was the place where bad teams resided, and they just couldn't get out of that league fast enough. This year, it is level 6. Wilmslow, Broughton Park, Douglas, Winnington Park. There might be Vale of Loon.
Old Winians.
Old Winians are top of the table. Old Winians are doing just fine. Bowden are doing just fine.
West Park, St Helens.
West Park are in our league. You know, half the league, level 6, great. Bottom half, dross. They cannot leave that league fast enough. And Broughton Park, I think, probably lead that race. They have won 2 games.
No.
They've won 2 games.
We can go back there. We can go back there.
Too much detail.
The 2 worst teams in the league.
Ben Earl.
Let's talk about Ben Earl.
Can Ben Earl? He looks like a kind of at club level. Is the big caveat, and he has had a chance at international level, but he's better than he was when he last put on an England jersey, and he looks immense.
He's the best player on any field.
He might be the best player in the league at the moment.
Yeah. If you had to pick a player of the year so far, Ben Earl's it.
Well, it's
hard
all
to think,
isn't it? It's not just. I mean, the steals are great. We all love the steals.
Elliot Daly would be another contender.
Yeah, Daly's having a great season.
Not as complete as Earl, though.
Ollie Lawrence is having a good season since he's come to Bath. He looks fantastic. But it's hard to argue against Ben Earl.
It's angles, the breaks, the feet, the pace in open space. I mean, he's just got so much to his game
hits.
He's doing the like nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And he's all fast twitch. So explosive.
His celebrations are annoying. I'll give him that. Like the double thumbs up. It's just so petty. I really
show it to me. I haven't noticed this. What?
It's just that. It's literally just. I'm just
two thumbs up.
Just 2 thumbs up. Like just.
Oh, it's a thing. Like Owen Farrell does the Just Jack. Or
it just looks like a goon. He looks.
It's just what he does, is it?
Yeah.
He's not. It's not a charity thing.
No. Oh, it might be a charity thing. I don't know. Goon Benevolent Fund or something. But he just stands there, and usually it's a detriment of like one of the opposition. But to be in a situation where he gets to mark like that so frequently is quite impressive.
No, I didn't see this game. Was South Africa getting Freudian slip from years ago? Were Saracens getting done?
They're getting pumped,
smashed.
Yeah, they were. What was it? 39-17 down.
They were getting an absolute hiding. Northampton looked basically like Saracens for large parts of this game. They were ripping them to pieces. Every time a decision went towards Northampton, all the Saints lads were rubbing each other's heads, rubbing the Saracens' heads. They were whooping in their faces. They were getting very Saracens-y. And they ran out of steam. And then as they ran out of steam and Saracens grew into the game, you could feel the life draining out of Northampton as this monstrous creation just came towards them. And they just never stopped. Saracens never ever stopped, and that was the difference. Their
Not
leaders,
for the first time. They did it against Harlequins as well. I mean, very different.
Yeah.
They weren't, but they were 14 points down against Harlequins and just went, no, we're going to flip the switch now. We're on.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. And their leaders led. I think that's the most important part. Now, they had a few things which went in their favour. So, the Northampton scrum was getting on top of them, and it went to uncontested. So, they went through a whole...
That's a sentence I've not heard. You know, I think there's a... Yeah, if you had to make a list of sentences, a combination of words that have never been said before. Well, certainly since the Majority era, that sentence hasn't been said in a decade.
Yeah,
Northampton scrum was on top.
It really was. Yeah, they were really doing Saracens, and then all of a sudden, Saracens got a few injuries and a few more injuries, and before you know it, it's uncontested, and they've got 2 hookers on the field. But even that, it doesn't really explain what happened today.
It was. I think you said it right before. Northampton ran out of steam. They play that high tempo game, and they can't keep that high tempo up for. They can't keep it up for 40 minutes. They tend to tail off. Although I don't think they did really at the end of the first half, but they tailed off towards the end.
The enthusiasm in their defence was lacking.
Well, when there's 84 points scored in this game. The enthusiasm in both defences was somewhat lacking.
Yeah.
Like when Dingwall carves through the middle for that his first try off the back of a scrum.
Love that.
Which is great, but he shouldn't be doing that.
He shouldn't be doing that. But Northampton make their own luck in many, many of these situations. So all the Northampton tries were basically them carving up Saracens, and Saracens not having much of an answer. Actually, some of the Saracens tries were exactly the same. No one bludgeoned their way over, did they?
Yeah, it was... The one Mikey Haywood, that was a pushover try, wasn't it? The first Northampton try. Apart from that...
The Maitland try was an outside break, hands. And,
yeah.
I mean, tries that shouldn't happen.
Apart from that, it was all... Yeah, there was a lot of tries that shouldn't have happened from both camps. There was a lot of defence optional in this game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But around the breakdown, Northampton started getting timid. The difference is... When Northampton were breaking the Saracens' line, they would do it in one go. They just they would get through the line, they'd break it, and then score or do something. But what they weren't doing is they weren't dominating the gain line. When Saracens had the ball, they really started dominating the gain line. They were making forward progress. They would drive the fit. I mean, actually, there was that Augustus carry, which was incredible. But other than that, and that was the difference. And as Saracens going forward, you can just see Northampton completely lose interest.
How did Finn Smith look in this one?
Amazing,
good.
Yeah. He should be the England fly half.
Get the kid in.
Yeah, get one Smith in and get one Smith out.
Yeah,
I really do think that. I think
no, you don't really think that.
I really think
no,
that.
come on.
I've seen him twice now. I don't need to see him anymore.
You want Finn Smith, Max Ajomo, and...
he has lifted Northampton. Honestly, Northampton definitely do not win this with Dan Bigger at the helm. They definitely don't. They certainly don't win it with Grayson. This kid's the real deal.
He does. He looks great.
Yeah,
he really does. 1,200 metres made with ball in hand in this game.
What?
There's 4 players who have got more than 100 metres on their own.
When I hear things like that, to me, it lends weight to what you brought up last week, Phil, when you said the Premiership, whilst it might, on the face of it, appear like it's a better product from an audience point of view, it might not be, one, and secondly, it definitely might not be the best preparation for international rugby.
I think I said that, but still.
Well, maybe you might have done, yeah.
Yeah, I think you made the second point. I think I made the first point. But, yeah, I do worry when we've got games like this. I worry about the spectacle, and I'm not saying I want to get rid of the salary cap, but I think we should be having conversations about, is the salary cap really what we want and everything that comes with it?
Well, yeah, because the general thrusting in comments that I've seen, and again, social media is not real, but I have heard it, is that Bristol and Exeter and Saracens aren't showing the necessary compassion to other clubs by asking for the salary cap to be increased back to 6.4 million. You don't. The salary cap state. You don't have to spend all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you don't have to spend it all.
If you're happy spending 5 and someone else is happy spending 6, that's fine.
Not having it.
But you can still, like, teams that spend less money beat teams that spend more money.
Yeah,
It just happens. Like, if it wasn't the case, Exeter never would have won the Champions Cup.
Correct.
They'd be multiple teams that spend significantly more than them.
Yeah, but if they only were in a competition where it was uncapped, if they had one uncapped competition, they wouldn't have won it. But because they were in a capped competition and they could play that way and they could develop that way, it was the cap that pushed them into that style in the first place. And it's the cap that led to them having such
Talking to the mic, mate.
innovative coaches. So, in my mind, that was a victory for a capped league. Now, the difference being the uncapped league has taken another step ahead now. I don't think they could replicate it. But an increase in salary cap by 2 or 3 million.
Pull it across that
Across
side
me?
of you, so that when you look at Phil, you're still talking
There
to
you
the
go.
mic.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, an increase of 2 or 3 million would probably solve that. But the Premiership's not ready for an increase of 2 or 3 million.
The Premiership, for a cap perspective, is not. But some clubs are.
Some
ready
clubs
for that.
are, and you don't have to. Newcastle don't have to. Sale don't have to.
Who do you think would?
Bristol.
Bristol have made a loss of 3 million quid.
Yeah, but
No, they've got a billionaire. They don't care.
yeah,
But they should
they
care.
don't care for now. They don't care, but they can spend as much as they want.
They would, and there's 100 rugby players, and 100 rugby players who don't have a job, and there are many other players who have had a reduction in their income who would agree with the perspective that
Sadly,
if someone wants to spend the money, let them spend the money.
Sadly, there's 100 players who aren't good enough. I mean, if they were good enough, they would have a job now. Now, maybe not. That's not entirely fair for all the Wasps and all the Worcester lads, but it's certainly fair for the lads that didn't pick up a contract at the end of last year. There are contracts out there to be had if you want to play for a low enough figure. And if you don't want to, you're not good enough to justify that. And it's a really hard message to go over.
I agree with that.
But it is reality. It is reality. For the salary cap to go up, you'd have the haves and you'd have the have-nots. And all you'd be doing is you're replacing the have-nots at the bottom of the table this year with the have-nots from the Championship next year. And you might get an Ealing who could turn into a have and go up the table. But then you've still got the same problem. We've done this for 20, 30 years in rugby. Never really worked. So why not give a ring-fenced league a go? And we can sort of learn from the Super League who've tried this and it's been a bit of a disaster. As long as we don't follow their lead, I think we'd be all right. I certainly think that you look at the standard of the rugby in the competition, and although the style doesn't lend itself,
this is the question.
It's a good product.
Yeah, it is. But
well, this is a question.
This is
the conundrum.
Is it really?
This is the conundrum. This is what led me into, because we all think it's a good product. If you listen to BT Sport and the people who love rugby, they will tell you it's a good product. But then you counterbalance that to the fact that attendances are falling.
Yeah, well, there's lots of rugby to be seen.
And a game with 1,200 metres, on the face of it, I go, oh, that's great. You're going to see loads of good rugby then. But
it's like your mackerel fishing.
You don't.
Yeah, it is.
You're not getting that. If it was, La Rochelle can play incredible attacking rugby, so can Racing 92. If those two go head to head, you're not getting 1,200 metres.
No, you're certainly not.
Not a chance. And the game will be intense, will be brilliant, and the quality will be very high, and there will be great tries scored.
But there seems to be no correlation between styles of rugby and popularity. So if you look at the South African teams, or the New Zealand teams, or the Australian teams, they play various different qualities, styles, physicality of rugby, and there doesn't seem to be any correlation between how big the crowds are or how successful their organisations are. Maybe you say New Zealand are more successful. So then you say, well, do we want to copy New Zealand? Or do we want to copy France? Or do we just want to forge our own identity in the Premiership? And I'd say you want to do the last one.
I would agree with that. You want to forge your own identity. I don't think having a conversation around the salary cap precludes you forging your own identity, does it?
No, and I also think it's some of the level of conversation on this is, I think, slightly patronising to rugby fans who... It's like being given sugar all the time. They don't need to be served loads of sugar. They can
need to be nourished.
Rugby fans can appreciate, and sometimes I think one of the most memorable bits of rugby I've ever seen was it was a Millennium Stadium at the time with Phil watching Wales just absorb 10 minutes of goal line
Poundings,
defence against Ireland. That was what, and the atmosphere in the crowd,
Amazing.
one of the most amazing crowds I've ever seen. It wasn't a Gareth Edwards for Barbarians versus New Zealand-esque try. It was just brutal and was compelling and was absolutely amazing. And
it's like being an M25 protester, isn't it? You never wanted to have the road, but now it's there, you don't want to get rid of it. It's a very similar conundrum. And I'm like that because I love the physicality of rugby. If we could go more towards a French style of game, I think I'd do that. But then would I do it if the cost was we don't get to see Henry Arundel score a hat-trick every single weekend?
Well, he scored that try against Toulon.
Oh, yeah. But like every single weekend, we are seeing hat-tricks, we are seeing 80 points, we're seeing... Yeah, and I'm quite enjoying it, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but if he goes and absolutely tears it up in the Premiership... and then gets to European Cup and
gets battered
and gets battered, or gets to international level, and you're like, oh, it's not quite the same. And that may not be the case. Henry Arundel's one of those generational talents.
But it might be the case for Barbary.
Might be the case for Barbary. Great example. Might be the case for Barbary. And so I'm open-minded to the thought that I feel like I'm being force-fed sugar. A little bit.
Yeah, maybe you are.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
I'm not even sure how much of that is entirely due to the salary cap being where it is.
No,
but it's just my original point was the product. We all think it's great. Lots of people think it's great, but it's not commercially successful. So
whose fault is that?
Well, I don't know,
because it's not Ben Earl's fault, you know.
Well, hold on. The attendance is a reasonable metric. I don't know about audience figures on broadcast. That'd be interesting. I don't know those, but just the attendance figures is an interesting one because that are people that are coming and then not coming back as often as.
Well, I think Bath was a sellout this weekend.
Yeah, well, Bath's always a sellout.
Yeah,
which might be the demographics of Bath, having lived there for some time, but you don't even need to have lived there to know what the demographics of Bath are such that it's not going to be a compromise. People will keep coming to. Enough people will keep coming to the rugby.
It might have been.
Whereas it might just be.
It might have been when they had the Ford Eastman Joseph axis with Sam Burgess coming in. They might have been able to sell 30,000 tickets for a 14,000. Now they might only just be selling 16,000. No one knows. You won't get that data.
But
I'm just
demand
not,
outweighs supply in Bath always.
I'm just not totally against the idea of opening up. I won't say opening up totally, but just looking at other options. Because it's not the salary cap has not created the panacea that everyone hoped it would.
Well, it's created the playing panacea. There's no... I mean, it's been... If you look at different metrics, you've got to say that it has been a wild success when you come to team balance, standards of coaching, standards of rugby on the field. So, from that side, it is a wild success. Now,
but it doesn't preclude improving your coaching, improving your strength and nutrition.
I think it does, actually. Yeah, I think it does.
It simply doesn't.
Well, I think it does across the board, because what you end up with is an economic incentive, right? Which is, if you can't spend any more of your money on players, where else do you spend it? And inevitably, they all spend it on S&C, coaching, so on and so forth. Now, you can still do that, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have the same incentives under an open structure. So now we've got a bunch of metrics which we would judge rugby on. So on-field competitiveness, I don't know, points per season, all these other things which stack up. You've got to look at the counterfactual, which is, would you give up all those things, or do you think they can be sustainable, or do you think they'd be the same if we removed the salary cap? And I think they'd all be affected negatively, and I'm not sure what we'd gain would actually materialise. I don't think we would see more eyeballs on TV. I don't think we'd see more people through the gates. I don't think we'd see more people in the stands. So that would be my issue. We know what we've got now, and I think we can build around that. By changing it, I don't think that we're going to drive the things that we want to drive.
So you mentioned competitiveness as a negative, and that's so. I'd say a lot of that stuff you can do it whether you have a salary cap or not. You can spend more money on S&C. Yeah. It's nothing is precluded on that, and once you've learnt from it, you can always do that. I mean, but the competitiveness one is an interesting one, and that was like my point I made the other week. It's one of the points that's made in Soccernomics that the having the haves and have-nots is more compelling for the league overall because it creates the cup finals. Every time Brighton play Chelsea, as an example, it's one team that has less and one team that has more. They've got an opportunity to take down a big dog to have a shot at the king.
So the question
and
is...
that creates a different level of narrative. It's a totally different narrative, but it's not an unsuccessful one in other arenas.
Yeah, so the question is Brighton Manchester United more compelling than Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears? And the reason I mention those two is that's a giant killing for Brighton. It's a massive event for the Brighton fans. Is it an event for the United fans? Probably not so much, because they're waiting for Bayern Munich or someone else. Meanwhile, Chicago Bears versus Green Bay, that is all based on the rivalry. So the fans will show up, I'm pretty sure, like regardless. That game's been played like 100 odd times now. And that is still an event because it is a rivalry. But for those sets of fans, it isn't a cup final, it isn't anything else. It's just a rivalry. And I think that's what we're looking for in rugby. We're looking for more rivalries like Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, rather than Brighton's versus United.
But Brighton United has no rivalry.
Yeah, exactly. So
they did play in an FA Cup final. They did play in one FA Cup final in the 70s.
Sorry,
that will sell out. Brighton United will sell out at both ends.
Yeah,
it will always sell out both times at both ends.
Yeah.
But it's not a rivalry.
And also,
like Everton versus United, there is a bit of historic rivalry going back to 1985. Was it Norman Whiteside scoring against United to win 1-0 for Everton?
Norman Whiteside a United player?
Yeah, he played for both teams. So there's the rival. So you've got things like that, which
Rooney.
It's spicy. Rooney is a great example. And there's been more players recently who've gone a bit of both ways.
Kanchelskis,
Darren Gibson, Donny van der Beek.
Darren Gibson, great one.
Yeah.
Mark Bosnich, did he play for both?
Aston Villa,
And Chelsea.
Yeah, did he go to Chelsea? Was that where he...
No, he did play for United. He definitely
played for United, not Everton.
Not Everton.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
No, the one you're thinking of is the guy with Tourette's.
Oh, Howard. Tim Howard.
Tim Howard, yeah.
Tim Howard played, American versus Australian.
Now there are... I don't know if these are upsides or downsides, right? But if you're making X amount of money, or you've got X amount of money coming into the club, like Exeter did, I don't know if it's a plus or an advantage that you can't spend that money on players, because maybe Exeter would have been better investing in their squad rather than investing into a 16,000-seater stadium, which they can't fill.
They can't then fill because their squad's not attractive enough.
We've got loads of money, what do we do with it? Well, let's build a massive stadium that will never fill. But theoretically, that's exactly what clubs should be doing. They should not be spending on the players. They should be building enormous stadiums.
Well, building infrastructure. But you can have too much infrastructure.
I don't believe you can.
Look at all the Chinese cities that they've built that are just now ghost towns.
Yeah, if only they had stronger rugby teams.
Exactly
right. So I don't. There's not a perfect answer, but I'm pretty sure some answers are more perfect than others. And I do prefer the salary cap.
We can say the top 14 is, in terms of club rugby, I love the Premiership. I thoroughly enjoy it. I am invested in it. I work in it. I genuinely love it. Even as someone who doesn't have a team, I find it compelling. But the argument that it's the best league in the world is for the birds now. The top 14 is
comfortably
different gravy, miles ahead.
Yes,
it is. It is. I think
in every way, like. And that's how much they spend, all the rest of it. But the quality, or most importantly, the quality and the intensity and the competitiveness is ridiculous.
Yeah, the buck has to stop with Premiership rugby. I'm afraid, and it's.
But they are the clubs.
No, they're not the clubs.
No, they are, because they are. They're an extension of the 13 clubs. This is the problem. There is nothing independent.
You speak to a club owner.
There's nothing independent.
If you speak to a club owner and you go, look, can you just fire this guy? Can you just get rid of this guy? Because he's involved in spreading a message of the game and he's doing a terrible job. They'll look at you.
Thinking of anyone in particular?
No one in particular, because that'd be ludicrous. They'll just shrug their shoulders and say, no, I can't, because it's Premiership rugby. It's like, don't you own Premiership rugby? Well, no, not really. And
they do, because they can change the rules to suit them, which they have done many times.
They absolutely do. And
I'll try again then.
And that's a cop-out.
Yeah,
well, I don't know.
Tried to get one person fired.
That's not what I'm saying. Trying to get one point.
That's what JP's doing. That's a specific example.
Premiership rugby, it's like Byzantine with its various committees and whatnot.
But it's all the clubs, though, isn't it? Like, the committees are the clubs are the committees, the clubs are PRL. There might be a few individuals who are employed independently by PRL who do not represent any individual club.
I'm sure that if the clubs wanted to really kick things on, they could do. But the clubs can't agree, which is why you need a strong PRL and a strong centre to organise the game. You
definitely need that, yeah.
But they can't do it.
Yeah, they need to get it. But it is, if the clubs... I still think it's down to the clubs.
Look, if the PRL had the right people, we wouldn't be saying it's down to the clubs.
No.
They would just be cracking on.
They are the clubs. Stop
It's the same
thinking
thing.
it's the same thing. That is them. They put Premiership Rugby there. They are in control of it. All the Premiership Rugby does is reflect the wishes of the 13 stakeholders. That is part of the problem, because they can't all agree, and so you cannot get anything done.
If they can't all agree, it's very hard to say that it is the will of the clubs.
But then it's also unfair to blame any organisation, because it's anyway. We don't need to go down this. Here's something we will agree on. I'm sure you will agree on this. David Reynolds.
No chance.
Contact eggchasers@gmail.com. He's referring to the Rugby World Cup, which we mentioned, and he says, firstly, apologies. I always email after I've had a couple of beers. He sat watching the semi-final between New Zealand and Australia. In the Rugby League, and he says, I'm going to just read his final paragraph. The embracing of the physical aspect of the game is making it a great watch. It's big, strong boys being allowed to be men on a rugby pitch, not constrained by an administrator worried about a media reaction. It is controlled brutality and aggression, making it a proper spectacle. Says David.
I think David's right.
I think he was right. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of rugby union fans, if they watch that, would be wincing multiple times. There were some high shots, I think. There were some no-arm shots that didn't get looked at. There was also a lot, far more, just very good, right on the border of legality, but legal hits.
And let's focus on them, because everyone always constructs a straw man and says, you're condoning high shots. No. Those ones that you just mentioned.
Yes.
The ones that are legal, but pushing it.
Legal concussions.
And brutal.
Yeah.
And
some amazing hits.
Which game
are you talking about?
Friday night, New Zealand, Australia.
It's ridiculous that anyone should feel remotely uncomfortable about saying it, so I'm going to just step forward as someone who has a...
All right, Simon Middleton.
And I'm going to say, I absolutely love it. I want I want to see pure brutality.
Within the laws?
Within the laws. 100%.
It's amazing.
Within the laws and the spirit of the game, I want to see brutality.
It's a funny feeling watching rugby league, because you do feel personally on edge. Like, they don't look at that. Continue.
There's like 5 hits in that. Those 5 play the balls that all should be looked at.
Yeah, this is barbaric. But yeah, completely agree with that.
This podcast is sponsored by NPR's podcast, The Last Cup. Lionel Messi is arguably soccer's biggest star, but winning the World Cup has always eluded him. The Last Cup is a tale about confronting age and human limitations, a story about loyalty, identity, and what his journey reveals about us. Hosted by Argentine journalist and NPR correspondent Jasmine Garst, The Last Cup is a dual-language narrative podcast focused on Messi's memoir. What's expected to be Messi's final World Cup, the podcast will explore themes of capitalism, immigration, class, and race. Check out The Last Cup from NPR and Futuro Studios. Find it in NPR's embedded podcast feed.
But there was... So on the Friday night game in particular, I didn't see the Saturday game. The Friday night game in particular, it was an amazing spectacle, but the commentators wanted to overhype it. And they like...
Oh, Bath Leicester.
No.
New Zealand, Australia.
They did New Zealand, Australia. So everything was the best hit, the best. Like, this is the best thing you will ever see. It was repeated 100 times.
It was like the Women's Rugby World Cup.
The hyperbole was so exaggerated.
I don't know if you know this, but in the Women's World Cup, the best support line that has ever been ran was ran. Do you know that? Somebody actually said this. They said, that is the best support line that has ever been run. Chris Ashton will be dreaming about that in his sleep tonight. It's like, are you joking?
I did hear that.
That hasn't even made my top 20 support lines.
I remember, so having worked in radio, I've worked at some small, on the way up, I worked at some smaller stations, and I remember some salesperson had sold a competition and they'd sold it where I had to say, it was Cadbury's cake bars or something, it was the product, and it was said, with the delicious new Cadbury's cake bars coming in incredible 5 new flavours, and I went, sorry, just run me by this again. Fine, I can mention Cadbury's cake bars, but you're saying what? That bit in bold there, yeah, that's the bit that the client's paid for. You have to say that in that way. And I just said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that, because I would never say that. Because the point being is, when next week I go, I've got an incredible holiday for you and your family to the Caribbean to go and live on a yacht for a week. It's like, yeah, that is incredible.
Yes.
Cadbury's cake bars are not incredible. So exactly the same, feeding me too much sugar. If you lose the impact of it when you say it all the time.
This game, it was so exaggerated. At one point, one of the commentators said, he said the line, "There is no bigger stage than a World Cup semi-final."
No.
I'm thinking, well, maybe in 1 week's time, I can think of one just off the top of my head. I don't know.
I love the State of Origin one because it's so brazen. And they say, this is the greatest game in any code. Oh, right, okay. Just in case we didn't already know. I couldn't come to my own conclusions there. But this is the direct result of Eddie and Steve-O. So Eddie and Steve-O have left a long-lasting legacy. Bless them. And every game in Super League was the best game ever to have occurred. And we were talking like Friday night, St Helens, away, in the jungle at Castleford. And this was the best game of all time. And they've already predetermined what they're going to talk about. And they just go... I remember one game against Salford versus Wigan. They had determined that Stuart Fielding was going to be the best player on the planet. And throughout the night, Stuart Fielding had one of the worst games I've seen him play. But that you can see it in his eyes, the intensity in his eyes. The fire is burning in Stuart Fielding's eyes. And it just never stopped. Eddie, is this the greatest game that we've ever seen? And then Eddie would have to answer.
This is a little bit what I was saying about that you can patronise rugby fans a little bit.
But they weren't patronising. It was so exciting.
No, I know.
They were so excited that I was excited.
Yeah, okay.
And the standard of questioning, you can take this back to BT Sport. You and Ugo can do it. Ugo, we've got the greatest game on the planet, but how do we sell it? But how do we sell it to the masses? And it just never stopped. It never stopped.
It was ridiculous. It made me cringe that Friday night game. Anyway, there was another Friday night game.
Yeah, Bath Leicester. Talk about rivalries. This one goes back.
Historic rivalries. Interesting game. Leicester should have won the game at half time. They should have been like 30 points clear.
Well, just look at I know rugby isn't won on team sheets, but potentially this game could have been won.
But it actually could have been. Like Leicester had. There was a start partway through end of the first half that they'd had, I can't remember, 30 or 40 phases within Bath's 22 and scored one try for it.
Yeah.
And it's
not good enough.
Yeah. They were not clinical enough, but fair play to Bath, the way that they came back and the way that they actually won the game with the try in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hell of a finish.
That was a
You would have thought, wouldn't you,
finish.
watching the last couple of weeks' games, that Worcester went under being the European champions because the players that they've let go and the impact they've had on their respective teams. Ted Hill got man of the match in this.
Yeah.
Ollie Lawrence has been tearing up trees. Apparently, he's now the best centre on the planet. I mean, he was a very good centre before, but now here he is.
Finn Smith.
Finn Smith should be in the England squad.
Should be the Smith. Yeah. The Smith wearing 10 for England.
What was Dimes doing?
He was asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, completely asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Jamie Shilcock started this game. Finally, Bath beat Leicester. I mean, it all works. I actually read the team sheet. I thought Richard de Carpentier running into Ollie Cracknell. That's going to go one way horrifically badly for one of those two.
Well, Cracknell, Liebenberg, and George Martin.
Good luck.
Yeah.
But no, completely wrong. It was why rugby isn't played on paper.
It's a fantastic result, and I do Bath have had a number of games where they've started coming back into it late on, and some of them they've ended up winning like this one, and some of them they've fallen just short, like the Wasps game and a few others.
Yeah.
But I think they've got some component parts to not being a terrible team.
I think
fitness being one of them.
What should be encouraging, and I think throwing too much of the focus on Ted Hill, Ollie Lawrence, would detract from the fact that when you actually look at how they play, there's an identity building, and it might be a very simple game plan, but it's a simple game plan which everyone's on board with, and that's having an impact. And that's Johan van Gran.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ben Spencer was back this week as well, which he's not been around for a while. I think he's club captain actually. And the other thing is can they just get the old boys enthused? Can they get Jonathan Joseph wanting to play again? Because if you get him enthusiastic, I think everything starts to sort of click into place there. So, good win. Unexpected win.
Well, it actually moves Bath up into 8th place.
Is it above Leicester?
Level on points with Leicester.
Yeah.
So only behind Leicester on points difference. Both on 17.
Bath are playoff contenders.
Well, I mean, they're not, but I guess the two teams above them are Leicester and Exeter, who are playoff contenders. So
exactly.
Yes, I guess they are.
Or Leicester contenders, yes.
Well, Exeter got a win, but before we go there, Chris Wheeler, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. Following on from discussion about rugby players and their parents, another one.
Yes.
Luke Cowan-Dickey.
His brother's a hooker.
At
so he was at Tigers.
He's at Tigers.
Yeah.
He was on the bench.
Oh yeah.
Was he not? Yeah, Tom Cowan-Dickey played this weekend.
No, Adam Cowan-Dickey, father of Luke and Tom.
Okay.
Is a record-breaking fisherman.
Oh really? Is he another fisherman?
In 2019, he broke a record, catching more than £125,000 worth of fish off the Devon coast. He netted 7.5 tons of prized Dover sole, later sold at auction for a whopping £125,000, making it the biggest grossing catch in the history of Brixham Port, where his ship, the Margaret of Ladram,
is widely celebrated, I imagine.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. Is it just a thank you, Chris, for that article? A link to an article from 2019.
That's astonishing.
Yeah,
125 grams worth of Dover sole, delicious.
I love Dover sole.
The quote wasn't actually from Adam Cowan-Dickey himself.
Not to put it down on that, there must have been one hell of a lot of off catch there. Dover sole is like a bottom fish, isn't it? It's a flat.
Is it?
It is. It does put his son in perspective, though. It's like that was a record-breaking catch. There's probably a once-in-a-career haul, and that's just won Six Nations for Luke.
Exactly right. Well, I think you catch Dover sole. I can't be sure. So someone correct me. I think you do it by sort of like dredging the seabed. Because they're a flat fish, you've got to sort of get them off the seabed. So there's two ways to do it. You can either electrocute the seabed and kill everything.
That's how China do it.
That's how the Dutch do it in the English Channel.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal.
Evil. The evil Dutch. Which is why we need a strong Royal Navy. And the other way to do it is sort of like a plough, and you sort of plough the. Maybe that's oysters I'm thinking of, or I'm sure you do, because they live on the bottom. So I don't know how you catch them, because you can't just like trawl.
It sounds highly destructive and not a lot of skill involved.
But if it gets you 125 grand in a week,
But they are delicious, Tim. So you've got to sort of, I'm not against it, particularly if you send me some Dover sole. Yeah,
and we're not going to be around for when our grandchildren's generations can't enjoy them.
Yeah, and by the way, you can't see the seabed, mate. So it's not a big deal. Yeah, but there must they can't have caught only Dover sole. There must have been a lot of other fish in there.
Yes,
a lot of other fish.
And on the subject of players and their new interesting careers, Ryan Forrester, contact eggchasers@gmail.com. Podcast, blah, 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 love, blah, blah. On the topic of jobs, this is an NRL, former NRL player and Salford City Reds player.
Scallops, not oysters. Please, Karen.
Oh, okay. Daniel Vido. Do you know him?
Vidal?
Vido.
Vido.
Vido or V.
No, I'm
v
thinking of
dot.
the Barcelona player. Gone.
No.
So he's a former NFL rugby player.
NFL,
NRL, sorry, rugby player, and he is now a WWE star.
Really?
I think I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, yeah. Good.
Fair play.
Zion Quinn is his stage name.
Quinn.
So there you go. Yeah.
That'll be Crisis's next move.
Retired rugby players and their jobs. Ewan Murray, former Scotland prop, qualified as a veterinary surgeon from Glasgow University.
He's been useful with his hand and whatnot.
Stitch himself back up.
Yeah. And on naming dogs after rugby players, because this came up with the Kiwi fan naming a dog, our Labrador is called Doddy.
Oh, very nice.
Nice
Lovely.
touch.
Yes.
Like that.
Classy.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for that email.
There were two other games.
Yes.
I've not seen anything of these two other games.
Exeter beat London Irish.
Yeah, Exeter 22-17. But there was a very late London Irish try from Tom Pearson, which brought them back into it. And I think Exeter they went out into an early lead, but then didn't do much after half time.
So, do you know who captained Exeter?
Simmons, Joe,
Maunder.
Keep going.
Jack Vermaelen,
No.
Whitten.
Hepburn,
Let's see how long we can.
Woodburn.
No.
Vermeulen.
No.
Josh Hodge,
Van Heerden.
No.
Moon.
No.
Yandel.
No.
Isafaya Scott,
Ooh, no.
No, it'll be Hepburn.
No.
Patrick Schickling,
No.
Yendel.
No.
No.
You're getting closer.
Dan John,
No. No.
Sean O'Brien,
No.
Rory O'Loughlin,
Williams.
names, no.
Harry Williams.
No.
Who else is left? Kirsten.
No.
Christ Tushunzi wasn't
No.
playing. Was he playing for Wales? I have no idea.
Come on, keep going. You've got the whole team.
You named
here.
the whole squad.
No, you haven't.
Luke Cowan-Dickey,
No.
Jack Noel,
No.
Henry Slade,
No.
Nick
White.
The 10 that's...
Go on.
the 10 that's...
Harvey
Harvey
No.
Skinner. No.
Skinner.
Hendricks.
Capstick
Hendricks,
wasn't playing.
No.
No.
Come on, boys. Only the captain of Exeter.
I'm out of Exeter players.
You're out of Exeter players.
Rusty Timua. I don't.
No. Well, who's playing this
Jack
weekend?
Maunder, Sam Maunder,
No.
Townsend.
No. None of those boys captain Exeter this weekend, although they have in the past.
David Jenkins.
Correct.
Oh,
David Jenkins, 19-year-old, second row captain Exeter this weekend.
fair play.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very nice.
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably getting his practice in for captaining the Dragons when he goes over there. So very nice. That's an amazing story.
That's great. A good win as well.
Yes.
Because Irish are not shorn of many or any players.
Yeah. Good win. Good story. Good fact. Terrible quiz.
It's a great quiz.
It's a terrible quiz.
Terrible answering of a quiz.
Victor O. Maranich, contact EggChasers@gmail.com. We just finished listening to last week's podcast, and on the subject of the fella looking for an All Blacks theme name for his dog, I'd just like to introduce you to our dog Bowden, five-year-old, 60k Rottweiler.
Oh wow!
And that's from Vic in Baltimore, USA.
60 kg.
Yeah,
That's a big
That's
dog.
a big dog.
That's like a leopard.
How heavy is Rudy? Rudy's a
30.
chocolate lab.
Bang on
30.
how much would Cheslin Colby weigh?
80 something.
Okay, who would weigh? Was there any player that would weigh anything?
I think
Harry Randall. How much does Harry Randall weigh?
Maybe 75, something like that.
Yeah.
So almost Harry Randall.
Capuozzo be...
Capuozzo and Minozzi or
No,
something
he's
like that.
small.
Yeah.
He's small.
And Minozzi's small as well. Capuozzo is listed here, this may be wrong, as 71.
Okay,
So not a million miles away from that.
that's a good. I'd back Bowden the dog in that fight.
Definitely. Minozzi apparently is 77 kilos.
DMAC. I wonder what he is.
I think maybe 80 something.
Yeah, he is small mind.
He is.
Anyway,
Let's have a look.
so-
Damien McKenzie is listed at 81.
The other game, which nobody's watched, is Gloucester versus Newcastle.
Yes, this is a good win for Newcastle.
It is. And there's one thing on here which I want to talk about, which is of no consequence to anybody, except for maybe us, and maybe a handful of our listeners that would have remembered this episode. But remember when we used to do that awful thing where we used to make a novelty 15 up, when we had a food and drink 15? Remember that?
Yes.
Remember who the hooker was?
So it's not George McGuigan, obviously.
Nope.
Because that wouldn't be food. I'm just trying to think who was on the field.
Sacchino, no.
Sacchino, no.
Blamir, no.
Just trying to think of
The other one.
food-related names.
Yeah.
Someone Fish? James Fish.
No. So, what happened was, I went deep into Google and I found a guy called Max Pepper.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do remember Max Pepper.
So
yes.
Max Pepper made the team because I found him. He plays hooker.
Yeah.
Played for a big private school. And his dad, it turns out, is the coach of said private school, Mr. Pepper. So Mr. Pepper's like a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, there is a player playing 7 for Newcastle who is only 19 called Guy Pepper. There is no way there's not a relation here. Not a thing, is it?
Which school is this?
I don't know.
If it's like Sedbergh or somewhere, RGS Newcastle or whatever it is.
Something like that must be. In fact, I'm going to have a look at that right now. Guy Pepper. Rugby. But I'm telling you now, there will be a link here. England age grade, obviously. Academy, Harrogate, age grade.
Harrogate checks out. Northeast. Might be his nearest
Studying
academy.
in Durham
Oh, mate.
University. There's nothing like
Durham
school.
University. There you go.
It must be, mustn't it? It must be.
Was
But Barnard Castle. There you go.
that the school?
Yeah, Barnard Castle.
Barnard
Boom.
Castle.
Done.
There. See, I know my rugby players.
Was Barnard Castle where Matthew Tate, I'm presuming the Alex Tate went?
Alex Tate, Matthew Tate, the pilot and his brother, the Underwoods. They went there. Toby Flood was another one. I think the scrum half, who has a brother, Dixon's, went there.
Carlin, the other one.
I think they did.
Alex. What was it? Carlin. What was Carl's brother? The one he still plays at Bedford now.
Yeah, he's a teacher.
Something
isn't he?
Dixon. Oh, I can't remember.
Paul, Alex.
Yeah.
So,
Played for England.
Yeah, he played for England.
him.
And
he
for
played-
He'll be gutted about that we can only
Yeah.
remember his brother's name because he's a ref and he played
Yeah.
for England. We can't remember his name.
Paul Dixon, Alex. I want to say Alex Dixon. No, it doesn't.
It's
No.
not. It's
Doesn't
Alex
sit right.
Mitchell.
Yeah.
Sam? No.
No. I keep wanting to say it's not Sam.
Oh, you were
Was
saying
that Sam Dickinson?
Dickinson. The same era.
Carl, is it also a K? No. Dixon, scrum
is
half,
so annoying.
England.
Anyway,
England.
Wait, if I'll Google Carl Dixon, he's
Lee.
Lee Dixon, Barnard Castle School educated.
Lee Dixon.
Lee Dixon.
Sorry, Lee Dixon.
That is embarrassing.
Yeah.
yeah, I bet loads of them have come from there. I bet like Callum Chick went there. I bet Radwan went there. I bet loads of them came from
Barnard Castle. Yeah, there's a few big fee-paying schools up in the northeast.
Yeah. So, there we go. That's
And we tell you nothing about the game other than we did say last week that this would be a good one for Newcastle to win, and they did.
Mm.
They did. So they move above Bristol in the league.
Bristol. What a nightmare of a season.
And
What a-
who's bottom of the league?
Worcester.
Yeah, taking out Worcester and Wasps.
Newcastle.
Irish?
No, Newcastle are above Bristol. Irish.
It's all going wrong for them.
Irish.
All gone very, very wrong.
And they should be winning these games as well.
Yeah. Can Irish make the playoffs? I know that sounds ridiculous.
So there are 15 games left. So
Yeah, easily.
they can score. So currently Saracens are on 43 points, and in those 15 games they can score. What would it be? 75 points. So yes,
Do you think at 75 points they'll get to playoffs?
they would. Well, not necessarily.
It's not
but
in their hands, is it? But
yeah,
it's likely.
Yeah, it's highly likely.
So where are we saying the cut-off for the playoffs are now? Bristol are out of it. Yeah, if Bristol are out of it, Irish are out of it.
If there's enough games to go at, but I can't see the bottom four making the playoffs.
Agreed. So
Any of the
basically,
bottom four.
Leicester is the cut-off,
Leicester
isn't it?
and above. Yeah.
Ooh, it's exciting. Highly exciting.
And have we got fixtures next week?
Northampton are playing Barbarians, which means
because it was because they were going to play Worcester or Wasps.
does that mean Bristol are playing?
Or they were the 13th team and had their bye week.
It's a week off, or Prem Cup week.
Right, so Bristol will have South Africa.
Bath have got Barbarians. It's like Barbarians, Bath and Leicester all play Saints. Bath and Leicester all play Barbarians within a space of a week and a half, I think.
And there's a load of like Banahan's coming back, Tom Wood's coming back, Cipriani, Big Luth.
Wow,
there's a load of some guys who are retired, like I think Tom Wood and Banahan are formally retired, and others who are kind of wanting to put themselves in the shop window. Perhaps.
Reminds me a little bit. Have you ever seen The Business with Danny Dyer?
Did we talk about this last week?
Maybe
or was it
Malaga,
me and you in Malaga talking about Danny?
Yeah. You ever seen the?
No, I've never seen it.
You've never seen it?
No.
It's a good film to watch. Very like easy watching, enjoyable.
Yeah, so they get to a point where they get the band back together in this nightclub, and it turns out to be a really sad event because they just aren't who they used to be. Sounds a little bit like this Barbarians team. Big Luth, Cipriani,
Yeah,
slick back hair, ready to go. Just no one's interested.
yeah. I can see it being
just
like
from the Barbarians New Zealand game, Joe Marchant. My goodness, he's good. I just can't believe he's how
he will
what,
be getting paid
what,
a lot of money. Is how he's going.
No, but I mean, what did he do to not like? He's going. I understand Tuilangi can do what Tuilangi can do, and Guy Porter was solid, but Joe Marchant did nothing wrong.
Have we not discussed why this is the case?
Yeah, no.
It's the curse of the good golf clubs. So sometimes the golfer isn't good enough to use the clubs that he's given, so you need a worse set of golf clubs. Kind of like when you're a trainee race driver, you've got to do Formula 2 and Formula Ford and Formula whatever it is. Eddie Jones just is not a good enough coach to manage Joe Marchant. Simple as that. If he manages to get it right with Porter, then he can advance on to the next great centre, but he's just not good enough. And therefore, Marchant will go to France and earn lots of money and become one of the best players on the planet.
Well,
So it's a shame.
Bearing in mind what we said about Johnny May might have lacked a yard and he's still a class player, but he hasn't really played it. But like Joe Marchant, even on the wing,
he's great.
He's a quality player.
He's great.
I do not get
This
it.
is going to be the death of the Premiership, though. So when we start bleeding these players, so basically, Joe Marchant is someone who could be playing in Northampton now. And what I mean by that is he is good enough in every way to play for England, but for whatever reason it is, he is overlooked. That is the whole Northampton backline. Everyone in Northampton fits that description. And these are the guys that are going to go to France. That's going to hollow out the Premiership. We're going to be left with a handful of young lads.
This is the problem with the salary cap being the level it is.
Young lads,
Either the
and
salary cap or the salary cap at the level it is.
highly paid, and
You don't see them.
meat grinder.
Yeah, you'll never see Courtney Laws, you'll never see Owen Farrell, but you will see the cheap South African import or the kid. And those are your options. And if they're any good, they'll go to France. And we're just going to...
opportunities in France, I mean, if you're a very good player, that's great. But opportunities in France are much lower than they were because of the GIF system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're not going to completely hollow out. But when you've lost the jewel in the crown...
Yeah, the best ones will go.
Yeah.
Because Marchant will end up being one of the best players in Stade Francais. He has got... top 14 player of the season written all over him in exactly the same same way as Zach Mercer has.
Yeah, agree. So there's no fixtures next week in the Premiership. There is a fixture on Friday night though. Are either of you
versus Broughton Park?
Are either of you boys playing in it?
I am playing in it.
Yeah.
I am also playing in it.
Well, there's like a squad of 25 lads. So
and I'm not included on WhatsApp.
No, and I'm not included in that list. So, but obviously, I want to get in the. There's so many forwards at vets level, or at least there's lads that can't run that much that they go, I'll play in the forwards. I want to get out in the backs.
You two play in the centres together.
Yeah. Actually would be a good.
I've got to play in the backs. I'm getting Dubai ready.
Yes.
I'm going as an outside back, and they think I'm an outside back. So
you've told them you're an outside back.
Yeah, I've got to back it up now with some outside back shit.
Yeah. Come in and do a track session with me tomorrow.
No.
That's good. I've got a good miss pass. I've got a good pass, so I can miss JB. You can be the decoy, and I'll pass it straight to Phil.
Roberts it.
I'll give it straight to Phil.
Yeah.
Perfect. Even better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that.
Sam Burgess style.
Good club as well, Wilmslow.
Yeah. Good club.
Good bit. We'll be on the first team pitch, won't we? Under floodlights, obviously.
Yeah, hope so.
Well, judging by the performance of their first team, they certainly won't be playing. So
Not going to tear it up.
Yeah, back to what I said at start the.
you can go for it now.
Start the podcast. Some dark days for many clubs in the Northwest. So Broughton Park, a traditional powerhouse, have won 2 games all season. They've got absolutely smashed by the 2 bottom clubs. Winnington Park beat them. This weekend they went over to Douglas and Isle of Man. They got absolutely destroyed.
But what's the bigger point here that's relatable for clubs up and down the land? Because we've already heard from old Khalifians putting out 3 good teams for.
It's simply this: there needs to be more. Well, there's 2 things that you can take from the Broughton Park case, which is there's got to be an escape route for clubs getting relegated, and it can't come quick enough. So there's five teams maybe in that league that then desperately need to go down because there's clubs in level 7.
No, don't desperately. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't like. It will happen. They'll find their level.
They will find their
Might
level.
take a couple of years.
But that is a problem, right? Because if you're getting smashed every single week, then that's a massive problem. So that's why you need to find your level fairly quickly. It's all right to get smashed every single week for a year, maybe even 2 years. So this happened at level 5. So you've got Kirby Lonsdale, who lost another game this week by about 50 points. Last week, they lost by 108 points to 0. Or was it 3? I don't know which one it was. But
it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Did they score 0 or 3 points having conceded over 100?
Yeah. So like Hull are a good team, right? They won pretty much every game last year. Mm-hmm. They went up. And now they're getting battered. That's not a problem.
But
Kirby Lonsdale's a problem.
I'm looking at the results. They might be losing more games than they're winning, but they're not getting battered.
Who's it?
Broughton Park. They're not getting battered.
Are they not?
No.
I mean, they've won 2 out of 12.
Yeah, that may be the case, but it's not like when Manchester lost their money and got beaten 100-0.
No, and they were finding their level
every week.
Yeah, every single week.
It took them 5 years to find the level.
So finding your level by losing by 10, 15 points regularly.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is the idea of unavailabilities. A lot of people that are saying they've got players unavailable don't really mean it. What they actually mean is these players have stopped playing, and they're putting a lot of emphasis on getting these players back when actually they just don't exist. So I heard of a club this week who have 45 players unavailable. Do they really have 45 players unavailable, or do they have 10 players unavailable and 35 players that have just quit? Because that's a very different scenario. And if you're just hanging your hat on saying, we're going to have these 35 players back, it's going to be great, and that's what you're hoping on, you're never going to turn the ship around. If you concentrate on the 10 players that are unavailable, plus the guys that you've got, and you really focus your efforts on them and getting them the right rugby, the right coaching, the right offer to improve their game, then they'll improve their game, and everything will be fine.
I can tell you something that might be very relatable to people involved in grassroots clubs, and because this isn't me having a moan, although that will be the context of what happens here. I'll be having a moan. So on Wednesday night training, our under 15s lads, this is a Wednesday night, cold, windy, Manchester weather, 24 lads, which is like awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say
that is really good.
24 lads. We were there in the junior section at Broughton Park. We are the only age group side to have registered a win in the Lancashire Cup. Every other team has lost all the games so far, which is fine. That happens because it's competitive. But in our pool, we're top. It's basic. What I'm saying is, and I don't know how this has happened. Well, no, I have some ideas about how this has happened, which is kind of my point. Which is kind of my point. So anyway, this is, it's an anomaly within the club. They've got this one age group with a really good team. And you think a few years' time, if some of those lads will go off to uni, some will move away, but a handful of them could form the core of a first team.
They could do,
and that's like job done for that age group, for the club. And in the meantime, you've got this little beacon of in your junior section of a club that is PR wise is doing a great job at continuing the legacy of Broughton Park, a proud club. 24.
You've got some Talk H boys in there, though, haven't you, when you merged?
A couple of them.
Yeah,
just a couple.
saying.
Just a couple.
They'll be returned.
So we turn up, 24 lads, and we are on... The bit of pitch we've been allocated is the same as equivalent space-wise as every other side. Some of those sides have 4, 5, 6 lads turning up.
Oh,
Yeah.
We have 24. So we're given our little allocated space with 24 lads, the same as some people who've got 10. And there's no relevance made to numbers turning up to space you get. And we're also given a pitch where there's only floodlights on one side, and we're expected to play in the dark on the dark bit on the far side. And there's a bit of me where I want to throw my weight around and go, we're the only team that's won in the Lancashire Cup. We're top of our pool, and that we've got,
and you work for Virgin Radio, and you've got a podcast.
Yeah. I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
No, so I really want these. Like they've got something, and they can do something this season, and they're having a great time. And to throw them out in darkness on a Wednesday night just
Do you know where that
does my
happen?
head in. And this is just rugby politics all over, because you try and have this conversation. And
Do you know where that wouldn't happen? And I'll get you those floodlights on tomorrow, mate. You just bring the boys down, and I'll get the floodlights on, and they'll have some dinner at the end of it.
well,
It'll be
apparently
great.
there's some mobile lights which might solve that issue. But the other thing is, if I were at the club and I had a team, and it doesn't matter if it's mine, it could be the under-14s, it could be the under-16s, whatever. But if I had a team that was really good, as a club, I would take huge pride in that, and I'd go, do you know what? You're doing so well, you get the first team pitch for your next game. You know, just stuff like that.
Little things, isn't it?
It's little things, but it's partly rugby club politics, and it's partly just. Actually, the reality of it is partly people. So the clubs rely on people that are so busy. A few people who are so busy that they can't.
Well, did you read the BBC article the other day again by Sarah Orchid? And it was
Orchard.
about her, and it was about people making the decision between feeding their kids and playing competitive sports. It was one of the most perverse articles I have ever read in my life.
I've not read it, but you mentioned it to me.
Did I mention this to you? You'll love this, Tim.
Oh well, yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about me when I was growing up, and so we were genuinely when it was me, my brother, and my mum. We genuinely poor. We didn't have a car. We used to walk 2.5 miles to Newbury Rugby Club and walk back when me and my brother were 6 and 7, and but the point being is that in terms of what we could have done with our time, it's like no, the cost of rugby is minimal.
You're not wrong.
And the value is massive. So I think there are a lot of people that will sacrifice many, many more things before they would give up on rugby, which actually is a really cheap pursuit.
Oh my word!
It's a really cheap pursuit.
I knew this would I knew this would this would get you. So the story goes like this, which is families are having to make a decision whether they feed themselves or they do sport. I thought, that's an odd way to put things. And the reason is because council budgets are getting cut, and therefore leisure services have been affected. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. It doesn't cost you anything to go to Broughton Park. It doesn't cost you anything to go to Didsbury. And
well, there might be subs
at the
but equally there's most clubs would say, come and have a chat with us if there's any issue.
100%.
We have to think about the tour at the end of the season. The tour is £65 per person, which is really good value. You stay in for a couple of nights, it's great. A bus there, bus back, all the rest of it. So it's really cheap. But nevertheless, they said, any issues, come and chat to us.
Can you imagine a scenario in your under-15s where a lad says to you, I can't play this weekend. Why is that? I don't have boots. Like, you wouldn't even ask, you can't afford boots. You just say, I'll find you some boots.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even question it, right?
No.
I can't play this weekend. I've got no kit. Again, you would have kit. So the thrust of the story is that parents are trying to decide: do I buy kit for my kids? Do I buy boots for my kids? Can we afford the match fees? And they tot up how much rugby costs or how much football costs. And then they talk about how councils can't supply leisure equipment. Thinking, we don't want the councils anywhere near this. This is the last thing in the world we want. This is why clubs are run by members. And this is why members care more for their clubs than anyone does. Because if you went down to, I'll just pick a club, Aylesbury, for instance, who've had a lot of good press recently. There's no way that someone is not playing for that club because they can't afford it. Just not a thing. The clubs look after their members. It is the cheapest thing that you can do. And once you're in, you will be looked after. You'll probably be fed, watered, clothed. Someone will probably even do your kit for you if you found the right person. But it's just a classic BBC story where they're telling lies about what it is to do community sport. When it's all said and done, all that we'll have left is things like community sport, because when there's real choices to make, these are things that don't go away. That's why you want member-run clubs, not council-run clubs. But of course, member-run clubs are bad, because ultimately they'll look after their members. The members are similar to them. It doesn't serve a diverse community. It might not have the range of teams that they want. As soon as you start doing a deal with the council, you're doing a deal with the devil.
I'd like to read the article, but on the face of it, purely only from what you've said, I don't understand the I don't. That's surprised me, because that journalist knows rugby, and that wouldn't I would have thought be the take of anyone who knows a rugby club.
Yeah, well, it's a dreadful article.
Well, I'll read it before and reserve judgment. But
for some, that means choosing between having the heating on or feeding their family. For others, it has meant making savings in areas such as having to limit exercise classes for themselves or their children. What?
Hold on, she hasn't mentioned rugby.
Huh?
She hasn't mentioned rugby clubs.
No, but they mentioned sports clubs, right?
Okay.
BBC visited Mansfield School of Boxing and heard about the choices some families were being forced to make when it comes to balancing rising living costs. We also spoke to swimmers at Rye Leisure Centre in Sussex as their pool closed last spring. Okay, I mean, I understand why you can't swim because your pool closes, but the boxing club's still open. The rugby club's still open.
Well, okay. So but let's do a generous take on this and go. Maybe actually the substantive point may well be accurate in the case of many sports, but let's just flip it round as a positive. If you find yourself in that position, go to your local rugby club, because, yes, exactly for the reasons you mentioned, rugby will look after its members and no one will be left in that particular position.
Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. I'm not going to read anymore. I'll send you the article. It's unbelievable, actually.
And with no games next week, on that bombshell, shall we finish it up?
Yeah. Let's do any other business, anything. I'm watching. I've finally got round to continuing. I watched season 1 ages ago, but I've now started watching Handmaid's Tale again. That's really good.
Is it good?
It's really good. It's really good.
Never seen it.
But
Isn't that a documentary about our future?
Well, this is exactly it. When you watch it, because I went back and watched. I had watched most of season 1, and I went back and started it all again. And you watch it and you go, it's very different watching it now than when I first started watching it a few years ago. Because you're like, oh my god, this is how it starts. This is how it starts. The parallels, although it obviously takes it into a very dystopian, different direction, the parallels are quite eerie at times. Well, that's all I'll say.
Yeah,
it's based on a book, isn't it?
Yeah, by Margaret Atwood or whatever. Yeah.
No, I've not read it or seen it.
It's good.
Might try and read the book.
It's cool. Oh, it's so sophisticated. No, I'm not going to watch it. I'll read it.
You know me, Tim.
I feel that I do have something to say. I can't remember what it is. So it's not important.
It'll come to you. We'll cover it next week.
Yeah.
All right. Let the boys play.
Have you tried finding tickets for any live event lately? It's impossible to keep up, and prices are crazy. That's why you have to check out Gold Star. Gold Star makes it easy to discover the best in live entertainment in your city, with instant access to awesome events and special ticket deals. Concerts, live theater, comedy, dance, food fests, immersive experiences. You name it, Gold Star has access to special deals you won't find anywhere else, with savings of 50% or more. Go to goldstar.com and use code DCPOD to save $10 on your first purchase. That's goldstar.com, code DCPOD, to save $10.